I'm Grace. Standing here at my brother Ethan's engagement party, I'm seething with a mix of anger and disbelief. Just moments ago, my father, Richard, stood in front of 150 guests at the prestigious Lakeside Country Club and introduced Ethan as the family's only successful child. The words hit me like a sledgehammer, shattering the last shred of hope I had for his recognition. Our family is well known in the small town of Millfield. My father, Richard, is a high-powered lawyer who has spent his entire career climbing the corporate ladder at a top-tier law firm. He's the kind of man who values status, achievement, and most of all, male success. My mother, Emily, is a former schoolteacher who gave up her career to be a homemaker. She's gentle and soft-spoken, always trying to keep the peace in our family. Growing up, it was clear that Ethan, 5 years younger than me, was the golden child. He got driven to school in my father's fancy BMW while I took the bus. When his grades slipped, he got the best private tutors money could buy. When I asked for a tutor to help me with advanced math, my father scoffed and said, "Girls don't need to be math geniuses. Just focus on being a good wife someday." Ethan's soccer games were major family events. My parents would show up with banners and cheering gear, and the whole family would go out for dinner afterward to celebrate. Meanwhile, I was the top student in my class every year. I was on the honor roll, won numerous academic awards, and even got early acceptance letters from some of the best universities in the country. But none of that mattered to my father. In his eyes, I was just a daughter, a liability waiting to be married off. The summer before my freshman year of college, I got accepted into Stanford University with a partial scholarship. I still needed about $20,000 a year to cover the rest of the tuition. I was so excited, thinking that my parents would be proud of me. I sat down at the dinner table, smoothed out the acceptance letter, and said, "I got in with a scholarship, but I need a little help with the rest." My father picked up the letter, glanced at it, and then tossed it back on the table. "That money is for Ethan. He'll need it for law school," he said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You should just find a nice boy and get married." I looked at Ethan. He was sitting there playing on his phone, pretending not to hear. My mother sat in silence, her eyes downcast. The silence in the room was deafening. I felt my heart break into a million pieces, but I didn't let them see me cry. I folded the letter, put it in my pocket, and said, "Okay." That night, I made a decision. I would never ask my father for anything again. I spent the next 4 years working 3 jobs. I was a waitress at a local diner, a library assistant at the university library, and a weekend tutor for high school students. I survived on 5 hours of sleep a night, and I never went home for holidays. I told my mother I had extra shifts, but the truth was, I couldn't stand to be in that house, watching Ethan get everything I ever wanted. I graduated from Stanford with honors, a 3.9 GPA, and a full ride scholarship to Harvard Law School. I worked even harder during law school, spending countless hours in the library and taking on challenging internships. After 3 years of law school, 2 years of clerkship, and another 5 years at a top law firm, I became a successful corporate lawyer. I was one of the few women in my field, respected by my colleagues and clients alike. But my family had no idea. My mother knew I worked at a law firm, but that was the extent of it. She never asked for details, and I never offered them. I wore my Harvard law ring every day, a simple gold band with the university crest. It was my silent rebellion, a reminder of everything I had achieved on my own. Then, a few weeks ago, my mother called me. "Grace, honey," she said in a hushed tone. "Ethan is getting engaged. There's going to be a big party at the Lakeside Country Club. Your father wants it to be a grand event." I could hear the hesitation in her voice. "Your father doesn't want anyone introducing you as a lawyer. He said you should just come as Ethan's sister. Keep it simple."
I was tempted to say no.
I had spent so many years building a life that didn't need their approval. But a part of me, the part that still yearned for my father's love and acceptance, couldn't resist. "I'll be there," I said. I took a taxi to the country club. I didn't want to deal with valet parking or anyone asking questions about my car or my job. When I arrived, the security guard at the entrance checked his list and frowned. "I'm not seeing a Grace here," he said. I called my mother, and she came rushing out, looking flustered. "She's with me," she told the guard. "She's family." I walked into the ballroom, which was filled with elegant people in designer clothes. The room was decorated with crystal chandeliers, and a string quartet was playing soft music in the corner. My father was standing near the entrance, greeting guests with a firm handshake and a big smile. When he saw me, his expression changed for a split second, then he quickly regained his composure. He nodded at me, as if I was just a distant acquaintance. A man beside him asked, "Richard, who's that?" My father replied smoothly, "Just a relative." I walked past him without saying a word and headed for the bar. That's when I noticed her, a woman in a beautiful white dress, staring at my ring. At 8 o'clock sharp, the music stopped, and a spotlight illuminated the small stage at the front of the ballroom. My father stepped up to the microphone, a glass of champagne in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming. "Thank you all for joining us tonight to celebrate a very special occasion. Tonight, we honor my son Ethan, the pride of our family, our only successful child." I felt like the ground had opened up beneath me. I stood there, frozen, as my father went on to talk about Ethan's bright future in law. Ethan was standing near the stage, beaming, accepting congratulations from everyone. I could feel the eyes of the guests on me, and I knew they could sense the tension. A woman beside me whispered to her husband, "Isn't that his daughter? I thought they only had one son." Just then, the woman in the white dress walked up to me. "Excuse me," she said, her eyes fixed on my ring. "Do you work at Harvard Law?" I took a deep breath and said, "Yes, I do. I'm a lawyer." She gasped, "Oh my God, Your Grace. I'm Lily, Ethan's fiancée. I was in a legal trouble 3 years ago, and you represented me in court. You saved my business." Before I could respond, Ethan appeared at her side. "Babe, what's going on?" he asked, looking confused. Lily looked at him, and then at me. "Ethan, you never told me your sister was a famous lawyer. She's the one who saved my company from going bankrupt." Ethan's face turned red. He stammered, "She just works in the office. It's not a big deal." Lily stared at him in disbelief. "Ethan, this is a huge deal. She's a brilliant lawyer, and you've been hiding her from me." The guests around us started to notice the commotion. My father came over looking angry. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Ethan quickly said, "Grace was just leaving. She's causing a scene." I stood my ground. "I'm not leaving, Dad. I came to celebrate Ethan's engagement, and I'm going to stay." My father's face hardened. "This is Ethan's night. You're not going to ruin it." I looked him in the eye and said, "You've been ignoring my achievements for years. I've worked my ass off to get where I am, and I'm not going to let you erase me anymore." Lily stepped forward. "Mr. Thompson, I think everyone should know the truth. Grace is an amazing lawyer. She's helped so many people, and she deserves to be recognized." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a colleague. "Hey, Grace. I saw Ethan at a real estate seminar last week. Thought he was in law school?" I showed the text to Lily. She looked at Ethan, her eyes filled with betrayal. "Ethan, what's going on? You've been lying to me about your career." Ethan's face paled. He tried to come up with an excuse, but he couldn't. The truth was out. He had dropped out of law school 2 years ago and had been working in real estate ever since. My father looked at him in shock. "Ethan, how could you do this?" Lily took off her engagement ring and placed it in Ethan's hand. "I can't marry someone who lies to me. I thought I knew you, but I don't." She turned to me and said, "Grace, you're an inspiration. You've achieved so much on your own, and I'm sorry your family has treated you this way." My mother came over, tears in her eyes. "Grace, I'm so sorry. I should have stood up for you. I was afraid of your father, but I realize now that I was wrong." I hugged her. "It's okay, Mom. I've learned to stand up for myself." My father stood there, silent, his face a mix of anger and shame. For the first time, I saw a crack in his tough exterior. I looked at him and said, "Dad, I don't need your approval anymore. I've made my own path, and I'm proud of who I am." If you ever want to be a part of my life, you'll have to respect me for who I am." As the party ended, I walked out of the country club into the cool night air. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of relief. I had finally stood up for myself, and the truth had been revealed. I knew that my relationship with my family would never be the same, but I was okay with that. I had my own life, my own achievements, and I didn't need their validation. In the days that followed, Ethan moved out of the house and started to rebuild his life. My mother joined a support group for women, and she became more assertive. My father reached out to me, asking if we could talk. I told him that I was willing to listen, but only if he was ready to truly hear me. Looking back on that night, I realized that the real victory wasn't about proving myself to my family. It was about finally recognizing my own worth and not letting anyone else define me. I'm a successful lawyer, and I've built the life that I'm proud of. And no matter what happens, I'll always remember that I am enough.